Welcome to the Provision and Guidelines for the Governance of Enterprise IT. My name is Kai Walters. I'm the department head of IT, cyber, and operational risk at the bank. Our department looks outward, so we're not looking into the organization, but more out to the supervised institutions. And we made the professional guidelines, the various professionals guidelines in the past, because we saw it really helps if we define what we are looking for. So it's a good communication tool as well to have guidelines. To make this presentation worthwhile for everybody and not only the large institutions, I also will show some videos to get the concept. What are we talking about when we talk about IT governance? So the introduction is going to be a bit longer, but I think more interesting. Then we'll talk about the governance principles, when we need to be implementing it, and we have room for questions. So not only this professional guidelines, but all of them, we do that to promote and ensure safe and sound practices among the financial institutions subject to supervision of the central bank. Most of our guidelines are in line with either ISO standards or other standards. So it is not something that we make up, it's always aligned with standards. In this case, this guideline is aligned with the COVID 2019 governance model. And when we started, it was COVID 5.0. It has 14 modules, and the first 5 are for IT governance, and that didn't change much between the 5.0 and the 2019 version. So the provision of IT governance sets out what the supervised institution needs to do, the manner in which the organization implements provisional guidelines, and to which extent inherent risks are mitigated is the responsibility of the supervised institutions. We always do that with all our guidelines. We're not going to be sitting on the chair of management. You decide what your risk appetite is. But of course, we do stop by once in a while and to do an IT examination. And now that we have a new system, which is called the SIQ system, in which we send questionnaires that will help to make our organization more efficient. So we send out questionnaires with controls where we ask, did you do a business impact analysis? Was this 4 years ago or 3 years ago, or did you do it at recent? So based on the answers, we can determine a size of risk, and which can trigger us either to pay a visit or to do a management meeting based on the answers given to questionnaire. The provision and guidelines for is mandatory for large institutions, small and medium supervised institutions, just are encouraged to understand the concept. And that's actually the first thing that I'm going to talk about, the concept. As we know, for many organizations, information and their supporting systems are amongst their most valuable assets. More than ever, organizations recognize the benefits of information technology and use it to drive their stakeholders' value. The use of digital technology not only affects organizations, but most areas of human activity. Organizations need to incorporate these digital technologies and their capabilities to transform processes and promote new business models, thus establishing a place in the digital world. Welcome to the world of this digital transformation. It's a world that is growing exponentially. And what is causing this exponential growth? Everything is IT these days. Well, there are certain triggers that fueled this digital transformation. The first one was, and we noticed this also in Curacao, the pandemic, which put our social lives upside down. However, in all this distraction, we see some positive side effects have emerged. Working from home was one of these side effects, which I personally enjoy very much. This presentation is also a direct example of one of those side effects. We actively started to use new types of communication because of COVID 2019. We are forced to work together from a distance. But also we see that small and medium business start using the internet to deliver products at home addresses. So even in Curacao, you see that smaller shops, they have now their own websites. You can order online and they deliver at home. That was not there before the pandemic. So this is one of the side effects which fueled the digital transformation. You either join this movement or your business can go out, or you can go out of business in this competitive landscape. The telephone has become the most important gadget we own, not only to communicate, but to connect to businesses and services. But there is a whole set of technology enablers, which I will point out in another slide. So businesses accommodate the user expectation, and we expect now that when we pull up our telephone that we can get to a website and then we can order services. So also my sister, as an example, she wanted to buy a gift card from a website in the Netherlands. She knew I have a Dutch bank account. So she came to my house and we went to the website and came to see the screen of payment methods. And I choose for my bank. And then a QR code appeared on the screen. So I said, okay, what to do next? And these things become very intuitive because I know from my ABN AMRO bank there wasn't an option somewhere with 4 brackets. So I think, oh, let me push that one, and a camera appeared, and I put it on the screen, and bloop, a payment was done. I was really astonished. I didn't even have the option of "Are you sure?" or whatever. Boop, the payment was done. This is how fast these things go these days. And then ping, I got a notification from my bank that the payment was paid. So these are the things that we're talking about these days. But also new laws and regulations drive digital transformation. Bank needs to be, for example, EMV compliant. If you don't have a chip on your bank card, then you get a problem with MasterCard and Visa, because now they say that you are liable if anything goes wrong. The GDPR laws in Europe, and we had a session about that a few years ago also in the central bank, and local privacy laws and data protection laws, they all fuel this digital transformation. KYC, AML laws force the financial industry to comply with legislation, and otherwise you pay high fines. So all these forces drive digital transformation. This digital transformation to new strategies, which affects the governance of IT, because that's where I want to end. But let's take a look at a few movies to make it more interactive so you won't fall asleep. And this is about the new transformations that take place. So I need to stop share this screen. And I need to, now it says resume share. I don't want that. I want to complete new share. Stop share. Okay. Share screen. Yeah, we all have to get used to all this new technology. Share. And this is a movie about the insurance industry, but you'll get the hang of it when you see it. And I need to stop it again because I forgot the option that you can hear also the sound. So let me share the screen again. Advanced sharing options. And I need to have something in here. I'm going to share my screen with sound. Okay, here it is. Share with sound. And share. Otherwise, you only see things and you don't hear it. And the sound is very important.
The insurance industry is undergoing a perfect storm. Changing customer demands, advances in technology, increases in data, the impact of natural disasters, shifting demographics, and evolving regulations are just some of the factors combining to shake the industry to its roots. Customers want more from their insurance. Whether businesses, consumers, or businesses offering services to consumers, they all now expect the speed and elegance of digital retail, conducting business when they want, where they want, using the channel of their choice. And customers are increasingly savvy and able to compare offerings and prices with the competition in an instant. Technology is creating a wealth of new possibilities. The advent of big data creates opportunities for insurers to make use of unprecedented insights into their end customers' life, property, health, wealth, and behavioral patterns. Advances in artificial intelligence are allowing insurers to sift through this data quickly and efficiently, enabling more personalized approaches to risk management, reduced liabilities, and lower premiums in return. The ability to access data faster than ever before also allows insurers to settle claims more quickly. What used to take weeks and months is now happening in days or hours. In the past, a common strategy for insurance players was to wait for the competition to move first in order to see if a new direction was successful or not. But that strategy doesn't work in this disruptive environment, with new competitors from outside the insurance space. All these changes have given rise to new players with new ways of working and competitive business models. By the time you decide to move, it may be too late. So, as insurers look towards a very different market in the future, how can they navigate change and achieve success? In this environment, it's important to learn fast and, if you fail, fail quickly, so you can learn your lesson and move on. Established players must find ways to be more versatile, to think like a disruptor and act like a startup, while all the time maintaining a clear focus on the customer. In times of rapid change, it's hard for executives to separate fact from fiction. Easy to be seduced by the latest trend, and tempting to be drawn into blindly copying what the competition is doing. But following the crowd is not the answer. The most successful companies across industries understand that they have to build a strong and distinctive identity that allows them to carve out their own market position, rather than reacting to a market that has been created by others. Creating such a strong identity means that you must be very clear about the way you will add value to your customers in the future, your way to play, and also very focused on building the few differentiating capabilities that will allow you to deliver that value better than anyone else. Once you know which capabilities your organization needs to excel at, you can then develop a capability agenda to take you from where you are today to where you need to be tomorrow. It's important to consider how quickly you can build these new capabilities and by when you will need them to be mature and integrated. Should you build them organically? Should you acquire them through M&A? Or should you partner with other players? Being very clear about the specific capabilities you need to excel at allows you to focus your entire organization on what truly matters to your customers and build a powerful engine of growth. Disruption is here to stay, and not everyone will succeed. It is the players who have the courage to commit to an identity based on what truly differentiates them who will have the opportunity to shape the insurance industry of the future.
And this is thanks to PwC. I'm going to show an example of two products, one of the insurance industry and one of the banking industry. The product here, and in the video we see that from outside our normal markets, now we have threats of new players. So this is a company, Lemonade, that creates an insurance product. We will see a lady who is living in New York and she wants home insurance. The video goes a bit quickly, so once in a while I will stop it. So here we see where she lives. It is with her phone. We have to see this. She does this with her phone, and she's going to get a new home insurance. And she says where she lives. And the application asks a few questions. With the artificial intelligence, they know if it's a safe neighborhood, if she is a homeowner or a renter, if she has a fire alarm. It will determine the premium she's going to pay. So instantly you get to see what are all the rules for the insurance, and also payment is very quick. They will even cancel your old policy. Now their laptop is stolen, so she's going to file a claim. Now, this is a smart move. Instead of filling out the form, you have to speak into the camera. So this will always bring a hurdle. But lying on camera, you don't do that easily. So it's a very nice feature to have. So very quickly, we have these new products now on the market. And yeah, if you're an insurance company and you don't offer these services, of course, this is more in Europe, etc. But yeah, you can expect things to happen also on our islands. This is an example of the banking industry, where facial recognition is used to do payments. So she's now at the KYC, and the system is going to recognize her face. So this was by Alibaba. Stop this share and go back to the presentation. So you see, there are new things on the market, and please see here, share. And yeah, we have opportunities, but also it will take some rethinking in strategy. So in this fast-moving digital transformation world, organizations need to rethink their strategy. Doing nothing is not an option. Some big names went out of business because they did not see the urgency to act when it was necessary. In early 2000, Netflix founders Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph offered to sell their company to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster refused, turned them down, and now eventually Blockbuster is out of business and Netflix is doing pretty well. So we need to go back to the drawing board. What is our mission? What values are important to us? Where do we want to be? What is our vision? What is our strategy? How do we get there? An important tool that is still very popular to use, we also use it at the central bank, is the SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis. So we look outward and we look inward, and we look at our strengths and weaknesses. When we look inward and we look outwards, we see opportunities and threats. And those quadrants, we're going to think about our business and fill in these quadrants to set direction of our strategy. Where do we want to go? Another way of looking inward, this is a model where you look, if you look at the bottom line, is you need to have strategy, structure, culture, people, means, and growth all in place and results in place to enable growth. If one of these is missing, and think about it in your company when you look at this, you might come up with ideas right now, write them down. If you don't have a certain strategy where you want to be, it's going to create confusion for the workers. And because everybody is, if there is not, and for every 3 years, you need to have your strategy set, and it needs to be communicated to everybody. So everybody in the company knows, okay, we go this direction. Otherwise, you're not sure. And especially in bigger companies, people define their own strategy. If you don't put good structures in place, like an IT governance system or a governance system and policies and procedures, a good organizational structure, who is responsible, who is accountable, all these things need to be in place. Otherwise, things are going to get a little bit chaotic, or we do things ad hoc. The culture, and in the provisional guidelines for IT governance, we have a special appendix on culture. Please read them. We need to get the people on board in order to make change, because having a new strategy, how do we get a new strategy in place? It's normally we do this by dividing projects. Projects by projects, we created the change in our companies, and we need to have the people on board. So they have to accept the way, the direction that we're going to. But you also need to have the people. People need to have knowledge. There is now a shortage of knowledge within IT and specialized knowledge for cybersecurity worldwide. There's a shortage on this. So HR needs to define who you want to have in-house. And if you don't have the correct people, you will be very inefficient. The means, you need to have the money and the buildings and the resources in order to create growth. If it's not there, it's going to be frustrating. Everybody is willing to do things, but there's no money to uitvoeren and to make it work. And then maybe you have everything, but the results are not there. We used to have the WAN computer in the central bank, and it was in the 90s, and they had everything. We even have digital signatures on PDF files in the 90s. So this company was way ahead of everybody, but the results were not there. The marketing efforts were not good enough. So yeah, finally they went out of business. So the results also need to be there. But IT has become more dynamic and include distributed environments, integrated applications, telecommunication options, internet connectivity, and an array of computer operating platforms. Also, the users and customers of those systems expect more and more from IT. Having your internal organization connected to the outside world over public network with an ever-growing threat landscape make our networks more and more vulnerable to threats. And at the central bank, we know everything about this. It is a challenge to secure information systems and to have a good control environment in place. And this is the core of IT governance. We need to have a control environment in place. With the increasing complex regulatory environment and rising IT skills shortage, running a professional IT shop is not an easy task. Just look at this guy. He's really getting frustrated. Well, if we look at the current landscape of IT, this is incredible. The things that are available and come to us. Big data. We have RPA, the robot process automation, which makes it possible to put less human activity between systems. The robot will take it over and type in the forms for you. Artificial intelligence, look at the facial recognition. They, even with a wig, the artificial intelligence was so good to recognize the face of the person. The Internet of Things, you know, it's computers talking to computers, devices talking to devices. I luckily have a car that I sit in it behind the steering wheel. I press a button. I say, call mama, and yeah, the system calls my mother, and somehow, you know, it connects to my phone and things go smoothly. Endpoint security is very important. We have new possibilities with the blockchain, distributed ledger technology. Laws, they come at us. It's also part of the IT landscape. The devices, cloud computing. We have new methodologies like the NIST, like you see there, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Those are from the NIST framework. And also new is SD1. And you say, what is SD1? Oh, that is software-driven one, because we're moving more and more to the cloud. Now we need our routers and switches in the cloud, and they're not any more physical routers. They're software-driven, so it's all code. Everything becomes code. So those are the new things that are out there. Okay, now that we looked at business strategy and governance, we want to have our mission and vision in place. Now it all has to translate to the IT strategy. So the business strategy has to translate to the IT strategy. The organizational structures and processes need to relate to IT infrastructures and processes. And now we get to our IT framework, because we want to go in this new direction. And we have our governance set, we have our strategy set, and now we need a governance framework. And the first principle is, because what we see here is a bit shorter than what's in the guideline. The board of managing directors of a supervised institution should analyze and articulate the requirements for IT governance and implement and maintain effective enabling structures, principles, and processes with clear responsibility and authority designed to achieve the institution's missions, goals, and objectives. And these objectives of the principle is to provide a consistent approach, integrated and aligned with the institution's governance approach to ensure that IT-related decisions are aligned with the support the institution's strategies and objectives. IT-related processes are overseen effectively and transparently. Compliance with legal, we saw that, compliance with legal and regulatory environment is confirmed, and governance requirements for board members are met. So this is a very important part. So we need our policies and procedures, build a framework which we can use within our company. And every time within the principles, we will talk about evaluate, direct, and monitor. Evaluate is always, you know, evaluate what you have in place, and then it's the difference between monitoring and evaluate is it's on a longer term. So every year, or maybe every quarter, depends on the urgency, you will think about what you have in place and what are the new possibilities. And then you think, okay, we need to go this direction. So you need to direct, governance needs to direct to management what they need to do. They need guidance. So they direct a new direction. And once that is running, the governance system needs to monitor whether the new direction is accomplished. So this goes for all the principles. So in this principle, if we look at the evaluation of the governance system of IT, the board should evaluate the governance system of IT consists of continuous identification and engagement with institution stakeholders. And the institution stakeholders, we have internal stakeholders and we have external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders are the committees, management, the employees, and the external stakeholders are vendors, business partners, the one that have the shares of the companies. The central bank is a stakeholder. So all the stakeholders need to be in place. It is important to make this a dynamic process and placed on the agenda of meetings. And so place it on the agenda at least once a year to make sure that you look at your IT governance system. So in order to perform a proper evaluation, you need to have some knowledge. You need to be familiar with the internal and external environment factors and trends in the business environment that influence the governance design of IT. Understand significance of IT and its role with respect to the business, comprehend external regulations, laws, and contractual obligations, and determine how they should be applied with the governance of IT, and especially for larger companies like Citco. I'm the auditor also of Citco. They are worldwide in many countries, and they all have their own laws and they all have their own regulations. And to keep up with all these regulations and laws and contracts, it's quite a job to do this well. So you need to have this well defined. And within the smaller companies that we have here, we see that the compliance officers, a lot of times it's part of their job. Align the ethical use and processing of information. You can look at client privacy, this is very important. And also, what is important, ethical use, what you see in a lot of companies like going green, or look for alternative energy sources. So those are the things that you can think of when you evaluate your IT governance system. Okay, now that we have defined it, now we have to communicate this to management. And now the best way to do this is to formally approve the IT governance principles and policies, establish governance structures. The structures that we like to see in bigger companies is to have a project management office, have a steering committee, have your risk committee, have your internal audit in place. 3 lines of defense is very important to have your controls on the operational level, that you have your risk and your compliance on the 2nd level and the 3rd level. You have your IT auditors and external IT auditors and other auditors in place to make sure that everything is well balanced and in control. Allocate sufficient knowledgeable staff and responsibility of authority and accountability. We need to have our RASKIs in place, and in the COBIT manual and the Provisional guidelines don't go that far, but if you are able to download the COVID 2019, so per activity, you can see who should be. They have defined vanilla roles. So the IT security officer, IT manager, CEO, they all have roles within these processes. And there they put out who is accountable, who is responsible. So it's good to look at it. I did a IT governance investigation at the central bank, I think some 5 years ago. And there I saw that not the roles that are out there are not in the job descriptions of the CEO. So a lot of time people are not, they don't know that they actually have a role or a part. So that's good to look at it and to use the COVID manual and to see if everything is in place. We need to set communication and reporting mechanisms, direct staff to follow relevant guidelines for ethical and professional behavior, and direct the establishment of a reward system to promote desirable cultural change. So once we have evaluated the system and we have directed which way we want to go and the communication to management, now it's time to monitor. Is what we have directed executed? So we need to assess the effectiveness and the performance of those stakeholders, giving delegated responsibility and authority for the governance of IT. Periodically assess also whether agreed upon governance of IT mechanisms, and those are structures, principles, and processes, are established and operating effectively. Assess the effectiveness of the governance design and identify actions to rectify any deviations found. Maintain oversight and monitor the extent to which IT satisfied obligations, internal policy standards, and professional guidelines, and provide oversight on effectiveness and compliance with the institution systems of control. So those are the things that you want to monitor in your IT governance system. The next principle is about value contribution. The most important parts of IT governance is to benefits realization, resource optimization, and risk optimization. Those are the three important parts, and they are within these principles. So the long text for the first principle is: supervision institutions should optimize the value contribution to the business from the business processes, IT services, and IT assets resulting from IT investment made at acceptable cost. So what are we trying to do here? The objective here is to secure optimal value from IT-enabled initiatives, services, and assets, deliver cost-efficient solutions and services, and create a reliable and accurate picture of the cost and likely benefits so that the business needs are supported effectively and efficiently. So when we look at the evaluation part of this, the board should at least quarterly evaluate the portfolio of IT-enabled investment services and assets to determine the likelihood of achieving institutions' objectives and delivering value at a reasonable cost and acceptable risk level. As I explained earlier, when we defined our strategy and we want to implement change, a lot of times we do that through projects. And all those projects, they have a link to a specific strategy. And once these projects are running, the board should evaluate once in a while to see if everything is going the way they wanted to have it. And maybe we should kill projects in movie of PwC we saw. If you fail fast. So try to kill something fast if it's not working. And if things are working or you can steer it to go in the direction, and then you need to do so. And find the issues that are in project that are not running. The board should identify and make judgment of any change in direction that need to be given to management to optimize the value creation. So in order to do this correctly, you need to understand the stakeholder requirements, stakeholder business issues, strategic issues. And this is for the board of directors to understand. Let me make that clear. Comprehend the governance aspects of the use of existing and new IT services, assets, and resources. Identify and regularly discuss opportunities that could arise from change enabled by current or new or emerging technologies. Realize what constitutes value to the institution and evaluate business alignment. We don't start projects for fun. We need to make sure that our strategies are accomplished and understand the effectiveness of current structures and value creation. So as the C-level, we need to understand these things. Then we can do a proper evaluation. Set directions. Okay, once we have comprehended, once we have evaluated, we're going to set new directions for management. So what do? We define and communicate new or changed portfolio and investment plans, direct management to consider potential and innovative uses of IT organizational changes or operational improvements, direct any required changes in assignment of accountabilities and responsibilities, and define and communicate key goals and key performance indicators. And we need to measure, we need that to measure, and that we do in the next section, which is monitoring. Monitor a balanced set of performance objective metrics, targets, and benchmark for dashboard reporting. Collect relevant, timely, complete, credible, and accurate data to report on progress in delivering value against targets. A lot of times this goes through the portfolio management office. So there we have people that go to the project managers. They collect information on how well the projects are doing. They create a dashboard, they measure it, and they communicate to a steering committee, or they communicate it on to C-level, depending on how your IT governance system is in place. Obtain regular and relevant portfolio and IT performance reports, and upon review of those reports, take appropriate management actions as required to ensure that value is optimized. We don't want to waste any money. Manage risk. As I said earlier, 3 concepts for IT governance is benefits realization. We just looked at it. Resource optimization, we're going to do it later, and also risk optimization. I will read out the complete principle, because also here you just see a small abbreviation. So supervised institutions should ensure that the risk to the institution's value related to the use of IT is identified, managed, and that the institution risk appetite and tolerance are understood, formalized, and communicated. And the objective here is, the objective of the principle are to ensure that the impact of IT risk to the institution value is identified and managed. And how do we do that? If we talk about the 3 lines of defense, then in the second line, you will have your compliance and risk officers that will make sure that that everything, the risks are identified and managed. You will create a risk register, and once in a while this is communicated with the risk committee, and they communicate with management, with the C-level management, to see differences or things that are out of control or issues that arose. And one of the words that we read here, IT-related risk does not exceed risk appetite and risk tolerance. Okay, I want to explain these words in a very simple manner. What is risk appetite? Imagine that my son, he's 17 years old. He said, "Dad, I want to throw a party at our home." No, well, no, my stomach is, those teeners in my home. So I tell him, my risk appetite is that there's not going to be more than 7 people. And he agrees, okay, no more than 7, because I don't want the house full of kids. And 7, I'm sure I can manage. Now, my tolerance is, let's say somebody else pops in, 8, that's my tolerance. Any more than 8, I'll say, no, we're full house already. There's not enough chairs to go home. And let's say he says, he doesn't give any timelines. I say, no, well, I want this. When you want to start a party, that's up to you, but it cannot end after 1 o'clock at night. I want to, sleep too. So those kids need to go out of my house 1 o'clock. My risk tolerance here is, okay, let's say that it's 1:30, and the last one is taking off. Okay, that's a half an hour. That's my tolerance. But then after that, I'll turn out the lights and I say, everybody, bye-bye. It's 1:30 and the party was still 1 o'clock. So my tolerance is 1:30. So that is how you have to look at risk appetite and risk tolerance. But also the objectives of the principle is to ensure that the potential for compliance failure is minimized. That's why also you need to have your compliance officers work together with the risk officers at the second line of defense. Well, I'm not going to talk again about risk, because that was already also in the previous presentation. But you need to understand, we need to evaluate the risk. This goes through the risk department, and the risk committee is going to look at it. So there's the evaluation, new trends that are emerging. We're going to see if it's have effect on our business, and we're going to update our risk register. This is a register where you put in all your risk, and every time the risk committee meets, they pull up this risk register and to see, hey, how are we doing with the risk that we put on here? So when things change, the board needs to set new directions to management, and also the monitoring should be there. So at the central bank now, we all have, there was a risk, there was a break-in. We don't feel good about this. So there is an issue, and management needs to act up on this. So now we already were in our training for the risk training that everybody gets to be more risk aware. And now, we have to go to training again, and to make sure that everybody understands it well. We even get phone emails now that are sent to us to see if somebody's going to click on the link or click on websites, because that's the way that perpetrators come in. The number one thing how they come is through phishing emails. So we need to be very aware not to click on these things. So whenever issues pop up, it's going to influence the evaluation of risks, and management needs to act and needs to monitor whether or not people are adhering to this new risk. So the monitoring in our case is the IT department sends bogus emails. You win the prize, you know, click here to go on. Or they have more things that are more nasty, like you can send to the finance department, yeah, okay, you didn't pay the invoice. And if you don't know the company, etc., you know, this can be a phishing email. So we are learned also to report directly to the security officer that when these things happen, that we report it, so everybody can be warned within the bank. So that's risk. Another thing that is important, which I said, benefits realization, risk optimization, but also resource optimization, because we also saw that the resource, it's a problem, to get the right staff on board. So we need to have something in place within our governance system, and especially the IT governance system, to see, okay, how do we work on this part? So the long version of this is that supervised institutions should ensure that adequate and sufficient IT-related capabilities, and when we talk about capabilities, we talk about people, process, and technology, are available to support the institution's objective effectively and at optimal cost. And the objective of this principle are to ensure that the resource needs of the institutions are met in an optimal manner, the IT costs are optimized, and there is an increased likelihood of benefits realization and readiness for the future change. Now, also this we have to evaluate. Evaluate of resource management consists of continuous examination and judgment on current and future IT needs for IT-related resources, options for resourcing, including sourcing strategy for HRM, and allocation and management principles to meet the needs of the institution in an optimal, economical manner, keeping social and environmental responsibilities in mind. So that is all what you have to keep in mind. And to do this evaluation properly, we need to examine and make judgment on current and future strategy for providing IT. And as we saw, there's an exponential growth there and possibilities. There's all fueling this digital transformation, and we need to be up to date. So we need to evaluate this constantly. What are the new possibilities? If you're not yet in the cloud with your Microsoft Office, you're really behind. You know, everybody's moving in, it's more cost effective. So if you're not there, take a look at it. It's very sensible, and you will have a lot of extras when you do this. I'm not a Microsoft fan, but I work also in other committees, etc. And we do have a lot to gain from this whole environment. So define, for proper evaluation, the board should also define the principles for guiding the allocation of and management of resources and capabilities so that IT can meet the needs of the institution. Review and approve the resource plan and enterprise architecture strategies for delivering value and mitigating risk with allocated resources. So resource planning is very important, and we also see this coming back within the projects that we do, because we have business as usual and people work in projects, and we constantly need to see and work out a resource plan, not to overwork people, and make sure there's a well-balanced resource plan for the activities that people do. Understand the requirements for aligning resource management with organizational, financial, and human resource planning. We need to see in the future, do we need new resources, other types of resources? So HR has an important role here. Define principles for the management and control of enterprise architecture. And here, a lot of times we see, for example, that the make or buy decision, we don't make anything anymore. If we can buy something, if we can buy applications, we will do so, because it takes a lot of time to create new business applications. So if you can have this tailor-made application you want it off the shelf, take the vanilla, tweak it to where you want to have it, and you can use it. And make sure that it fits within your enterprise architecture. If you're a Microsoft shop or an IBM shop or whatever type of systems that you use, make sure that everything fits within the enterprise architecture. And ensure that good governance principles apply to all parties that provide IT resources. So that is the evaluation. And once you have done that, and you have your resource plan, then you're going to act towards management. And you say, formalize, approve, communicate, and drive the adoption of resource management strategy principles and agree upon resource plan and enterprise architecture. Approve of the budget, assign the responsibility for execute the resource management, define goals, measures, and metrics for resource management, because later on we need to monitor on this, and align resource management with organizational, financial, HR planning, and embed lessons learned in the organization. Especially after projects, we want to see what is good, what went well, what can we learn. So now we have set the direction, we need to monitor it, the allocation and optimization of resources in accordance with the institution objective priorities using agreed upon goals and metrics. So did we have enough resource to do business as usual and to do also the projects? We did not. Okay, so that's then we didn't reach our goals. So we need to think about this. Do we need more resources? Do we need to outsource more? Or temporary workers? IT source strategies, enterprise architecture strategies, IT resource and capabilities to ensure that the current and future needs of the institution can be met. Resource performance against targets, analyzed and cause of deviations, and initiate remedial actions to address underlying causes. So whenever issues pop up, we need to act upon that. So this was the capability. Now we go to the last one. Oh, no, almost the last one, because we also have audit. So the principle that we have here, the longer text is institutions, supervised institutions should ensure timely and effective communication with stakeholders. So I'm not going to go into this slide by slide. What we need to understand is we have internal stakeholders and we have external stakeholders. And we need to make sure that we have things in place for the different types of stakeholders. For example, when we have a business communication, business continuity issue, like a branch cannot work or several branches of a bank cannot work, then we have our communication strategy in place. We know who's going to talk to the press, what they are going to say. We have all these types of communication there. Also, what is very important is if you have all your provision or all your policies and procedures in place, make sure it is somewhere in your SharePoint where people can reach it, can read about it, and can use it. Also, your HR policies. It should be on a click on your computer screen to get to, if you want to go on a business trip, what to do, etc. So communication with stakeholders is very important, and make sure that you have the proper IT infrastructure in place also to do this communication. So we have audit, which is the last line of defense, the third line of defense. And there's something away in my screen. So we need to audit the governance of IT. So auditors should review if the IT governance frameworks and plans are adequate and effective to ensure that. So we have all these controls in place. And the last one is the auditor. And they are going to review independently and report independently of what they think about your IT governance system. So the auditor should review. What should they review? What are the most important things? The institution IT governance is executed and in accordance with stakeholder requirements, including applicable laws and regulations. Do we comply with the laws and regulations? Is there in our organizational structure somebody looking at this? If not, that's an issue. Business strategy and IT strategy is aligned. You don't want to see all projects just for IT to make IT more efficient. No, you want to see projects which align the IT strategy with the business strategy. New opportunities of IT are addressed. Do we do this as an organization, or are we lacking this part? There is a collective understanding of the institution threat, vulnerability, and risk profile. Do we see this risk register? Is there interaction between the different organizational levels about this? Are risks appropriately identified and managed? Interactions with various stakeholders occur as needed. And with the central bank, with suppliers. And we need to look at the previous section, the communication section. Do what we put out there, is that actually executed? Significant financial, managerial, and operational information is accurate, reliable, and timely, and IT practices are standardized. And we want to be on a maturity level 3. Maturity level 1 is, okay, we have some things in place and we're doing something. Maturity level 2 is the processes are managed, so we see that things are happening. There is a steering committee, but there's no charter for the rules and what everybody should do. So that's the 3rd level. Everything needs to be defined. Policy standards and procedures are continuously updated. That's not a paper tiger that's somewhere down in a desk. No, we use them. We need them and we use them. Employees' actions are in compliance with policy standards and procedures. Key players in IT governance are competent and have competent backup staffing. So we're going to look at the different players and see if they're competent. Resources are acquired economically and used efficiently and adequately protected. Programs, plans, and objectives are achieved. Quality and continuous improvement are accomplished, and opportunities for improving the IT governance processes our institutions are recognized and addressed appropriately. So that was the last part of the principles, the last principle. So when do we need to have everything in place? I certainly hope you already have it in place, but maybe you're not at maturity level 3. Well, make sure that you're on maturity level 3 by November 1, 2023. Yeah, for both of these guidelines, I'm the president of the ISACA Curaçao chapter. We're a non-profit organization, so we work budget neutral. We don't want to make any profit. So we try to, and that's why it's also supported by the central bank. We want to educate you also at the lowest possible cost. So I have here a link which you can indicate if you're interested in, in doing. I want to share the link actually. Let me see if I can do that. Right click is not working. Let me click on the link. I'll copy it from there. And I'll put it into the chat box. So if you're interested in either how to build a governance framework we can provide that training. And also we have the trainer Alan Keel. I think a lot of people know them. He can do an excellent job on business continuity management training. And he promised me that he will also provide the standards and procedures to you. So you can, you know, if you have nothing, you can pick that up and implement them. So that will be time, you will save a lot of time doing that. So if you want to go a training, just tell me, I'm interested. There's a checkbox there. You can say yes, this, and yes, that. Then we'll decide, okay, how big is the group? How low, where can we get the price? And ISACA doesn't want to have any winnings on this. So this is it. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I will.
Thank you, Kai, for that. Just wondering as well, the link that you provided in the last slide there, that may not be clickable on the recording. So maybe if you could send that link directly as well, that would be good.
Yes, yes, I put it in the chat box, so you can copy it from there.
Oh,
you
perfect.
Can click on there in the chat box.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, and
very good.
if you don't have a question, then I'll do the question. So these guidelines are for large institutions. And now is the question, okay, how do you find a large institution? So we have within the guideline, you can see that, and let me try to share that part. Share screen, and now I go to the guideline. And the appendix, we have, it's not an easy task, you know, to say you're large, you're medium, and you're small. We even define now single, which are companies that we supervise that only have a laptop. And for large, we say, okay, you have at least 50 computers, including servers, laptops. You have an IT department with more than 3 employees, and you have a governance structure already in place. So you have a steering committee and some type of project management office or mechanisms in place to look at all your projects. A medium institution, we defined 10 to 50 computers. The IT department is less than 3 employees or outsourced, you don't have it. And there's no governance structure in place. And the smaller, yeah, it's less than that. And if you're a small company, you know you're a small company. If you're a single company, you know, it's single is not defined here, but we also did that. And why do we do that? Because if we send out our questionnaires, we want to make sure that you're getting the correct one. So the first questionnaire that you actually send out to everybody was to define whether you're large, medium, or small. So we already have that now in our database. Let me stop and share. So this guideline is only for the larger institutions. However, I think you can, if you look at all the videos, etc., you can learn a lot here. So it's not a bad idea to look at the principles and see also for medium companies, how can I take advantage of this? It is a guideline. Any other questions? I'm not seeing a link in the chat box. Oh, okay, let me see. And why? Oh, it was only sent to Jacques because I had an other conversation with him. Okay, let me put it in for everyone. Thank you for that message. Okay, and everyone in the meeting. Yes. Okay. Now you will have it for everybody. Click on it, see if it works, and if you get the form. a bit down, further down into the form, you see the options for education. Are there any other questions? Okay, is there a way for us to play back the recordings in case we miss some of the presentations? We get recorded, so I hope it's somewhere. And then we have to put it on the website of the bank, and then we can communicate to you that we have this. So I think that's going to be like the email that you just received, because I don't have, I'm not sure if everybody that's here is also the one that receives the email, but we will then send it to the ones that we already sent it. And that's also good for people that didn't have it. Yeah, good.
We will not only the recording, we will all put the presentations on the website of the Central Bank. Okay. So they will get the recording via our YouTube channel, and the presentations will also be on the website of the Central Bank. Okay, and the YouTube channel, that is something that you can access from YouTube, or is this for we will send Facebook? The link. We will send the link to everyone. Okay. Any other questions? Well, at least I hope you understood what I was talking about, and understand that we're in this fast-moving pace in the world. And if you want to survive as a business, take a serious look at all the opportunities that are out there, and make sure to realize your benefits, and to optimize your resources, and optimize your risk. Okay, that's all for me. So if there are no more questions, and I have a thank you from Oscar for this very informative presentation. Well, it was a pleasure to do this. I'll stop the recording.